The art of telling a damn good story. How to move people, not just talk at them. If your story doesn't move you, it sure as hell won't move anyone else. The best storytellers don't yell. They cut through the noise by being raw, real, and relentlessly clear. Storytelling isn't some cute hobby for creative types. It's the difference between being heard and being ignored, between being memorable and being forgettable, between moving people and just moving your mouth. Do you find yourself telling stories that fizzle out halfway through? Do people's eyes glaze over when you're trying to make a point? Do you struggle to connect your experiences to bigger lessons that actually matter? Here's the truth. You don't need more stories. You need better structure. You don't need more experiences. You need to extract more meaning from the ones you have. Today, we're breaking down the anatomy of stories that stick and giving you the framework to turn your experiences into moments that move people. We're covering 6 game changers. First, why storytelling isn't optional in today's world. Second, how story equals power and influence. Third, the structure that never fails to land. Fourth, the 5-second entry rule that hooks people immediately. Fifth, how to make boring experiences powerful. And sixth, the strategic use of silence to maximize impact. 1. Why storytelling isn't optional anymore. Here's what no one tells you. In business, relationships, leadership, if you can't tell a story, you can't move people. And if you can't move people, you can't create change, build influence, or make anything meaningful happen. Story is how humans remember. It's how we connect. It's how we make sense of information and experience. Facts tell, but stories sell. Data informs, but stories transform. You can give someone statistics all day, but the story you tell about what those statistics mean is what they'll remember 6 months later. Want influence? Start here. The people who shape culture, lead movements, and create lasting impact aren't necessarily the smartest people in the room. They're the ones who can take complex ideas and wrap them in stories that stick. They understand that connection happens through narrative, not through bullet points. This isn't about becoming a professional speaker or entertainer. This is about becoming someone whose words carry weight, whose experiences create value for others, whose perspective gets heard instead of dismissed. In a world where everyone has access to the same information, your unique story is your competitive advantage. Whether you're trying to get a promotion, build a relationship, teach your kids, or convince anyone of anything, you're essentially trying to move someone from point A to point B. And the vehicle for that movement is story. Without it, you're just sharing information into the void. 2. Story equals power. Ask Maya Angelou, Brené Brown, or Steve Jobs. Let's talk about why the most influential people in history were master storytellers. Maya Angelou said it best. People will forget what you said. People will forget what you did, but they will never forget how you made them feel. That's the entire point of a good story. Make them feel. Brené Brown built an empire on vulnerability by telling stories about shame, courage, and human connection. She didn't just research these topics. She wrapped her research in personal narratives that made abstract concepts tangible and relatable. Her TED Talk didn't go viral because of her PhD. It went viral because she told stories that made people feel less alone. Steve Jobs didn't just sell products. He sold stories about what those products would mean for people's lives. He understood that people don't buy features. They buy the story of how their life will be different. Every Apple launch was essentially a story about transformation, possibility, and belonging to something bigger. These people understand that story isn't decoration on top of substance. Story is the delivery mechanism for substance. You can have the most brilliant insights in the world, but if you can't package them in a narrative that resonates, they'll die in your head. Power comes from the ability to influence, inspire, and impact others. And that ability is directly tied to your capacity to tell stories that create emotional connection and understanding. When you master storytelling, you master the art of human influence. 3. Structure that never fails. Hook, conflict, shift, resolution. Time to get practical. Here's the storytelling structure that works every single time, whether you're telling a 2-minute anecdote or a 20-minute keynote. Hook, conflict, shift, resolution. Hook. Start with something that grabs attention immediately. Not backstory, not context, not setting the scene. Start with the moment that makes people lean in. I was crying in the back of a taxi when it hit me. My boss said something that made me question everything. The day I got fired was the best day of my career. You have 5 seconds to capture attention. Use them wisely. Conflict. No one cares about your story until there's tension. This is where most people screw up. They try to tell stories where everything goes smoothly, but smooth stories are boring stories. The conflict is what creates investment. Show the struggle, the problem, the moment when everything was uncertain. This is where your audience connects because everyone has experienced conflict. Shift. This is the turning point, the realization, the moment everything changed. This might be external, something happened, or internal, you understood something differently. This is where the lesson usually lives, where the transformation occurs. Don't rush this moment. It's the heart of your story. Resolution. How did it end? What changed? What did you learn? What's different now? This doesn't have to be a happy ending, but it does need to be a clear ending that gives the audience something to take away. This structure works because it mirrors how humans naturally process experience and meaning. We encounter problems, we struggle with them, we find insights or solutions, and we integrate those learnings into our understanding of the world. 4. The 5-second entry rule. Start with something that slaps. Stop starting with backstory. Stop beginning with, "So this one time." Or let me give you some context first. You have 5 seconds to capture someone's attention before their brain starts wandering to their grocery lists or their unread emails. Start with energy, emotion, or intrigue. I was standing in my kitchen at 2 a.m., eating cereal and questioning every life choice I'd ever made. That's a hook. So I grew up in a small town and went to college and got a job. That's not a hook, that's a sedative. Lead with the moment that changed everything, the sentence that stopped you cold, the realization that shifted your entire perspective. You can always fill in the necessary context later, but you can't get someone's attention back once you've lost it in the first 10 seconds. Think about your favorite movies or books. They don't start with character biographies. They start with action, conflict, or mystery that makes you want to know what happens next. Your personal story should follow the same principle. Practice different entry points for the same story. If you're telling a story about a career change, you could start with the moment you decided to quit, the conversation that sparked the decision, or the feeling you had walking out of your old job for the last time. Each entry point creates a different energy and focus. The 5-second rule forces you to identify what's actually compelling about your story and lead with that instead of bearing it under unnecessary setup. 5. Make boring experiences powerful. It's not what happened, it's what it meant. Here's where most people give up on storytelling. They think they don't have interesting stories to tell. They think storytelling is for people who've climbed Everest or survived dramatic traumas. But powerful stories can come from ordinary moments if you know how to extract the universal meaning. It's not about what happened, it's about what it meant. Don't narrate, translate, share why it matters. A story about getting stuck in traffic can be powerful if it's really about patience, perspective, or priorities. A story about a difficult conversation with a friend can be transformative if it's really about courage, honesty, or growth. The universal emotions and experiences are what makes stories resonate. Fear, love, loss, hope, failure, discovery. These are the threads that connect all human experience. Your specific story is just the vehicle for exploring these universal themes. Look for the moments when you learn something about yourself, about others, or about how the world works. Look for times when your assumptions were challenged, when you had to choose between comfort and growth, when you discovered something unexpected about your own character. The most powerful stories often come from small moments of clarity, not big dramatic events. The conversation that changed how you see conflict. The mistake that taught you about resilience. The ordinary Tuesday when you realize something extraordinary about what matters most. Practice asking yourself, what's this story really about? Keep going deeper until you get to the universal human experience underneath the specific details. 6. Let silence carry the weight. Control the room. Here's something most people are terrified of, but master storytellers embrace: the power of strategic silence. The pause after your punchline is what lands the impact. Don't rush the moment. Let the silence work for you. When you deliver the key insight, the emotional climax, or the transformative moment of your story, stop talking. Give people time to absorb it, to feel it, to connect it to their own experience. Most people are so uncomfortable with silence that they immediately start explaining or elaborating, which dilutes the power of what they just said. Silence creates emphasis better than volume ever could. When you pause before delivering your most important line, you signal that something significant is coming. When you pause after delivering it, you give it space to resonate instead of competing with your next words for attention. This works in written communication too. Short paragraphs, strategic line breaks, letting important sentences stand alone instead of bundling them with other ideas. Control the room through pacing, not just content. Fast delivery creates excitement. Slow delivery creates gravity. Silence creates anticipation and emphasis. Vary your rhythm to keep people engaged and to highlight your most important moments. Practice being comfortable with quiet. Record yourself telling a story and listen to how often you fill silence with or unnecessary explanations. Train yourself to pause confidently instead of filling every space with sound. All right, time to face the facts. No sugarcoating. Stop telling stories just to look good. Stop crafting narratives that make you the hero of every situation and never the person who screwed up, learned something hard, or had to change. The stories that actually move people are the ones where you're real about your mistakes, honest about your struggles, and vulnerable about your growth. Perfect people are boring. Struggling people who figure things out are inspiring. You're not a documentary narrator. You're a human being sharing human experiences. The power isn't in impressing people with how awesome your life is. The power is in connecting with them through shared struggles, shared hopes, and shared humanity. Your most powerful stories are probably the ones you're most afraid to tell. The ones where you weren't the smartest person in the room, where you had to admit you were wrong, where you learned something that changed everything you thought you knew about yourself. Stop being forgettable by trying to be perfect. Start being unforgettable by being real. Now here's your challenge for today. Pick one story from your life, a moment you messed up, learned something significant, or shifted your entire mindset. Structure it using the framework: hook, conflict, shift, resolution. Tell it out loud today, to a friend, to your camera, to your mirror. Doesn't matter. Just tell it. Don't wait to be ready. Don't wait for the perfect audience. Don't wait for confidence. Practice the art of making meaning from your experiences. Your story matters, but only if you learn how to tell it in a way that moves people. If this video made you realize that your experiences are worth sharing when they're structured properly, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We're building a community of people who understand that influence comes through connection, and connection happens through story. Share this with someone who has incredible experiences, but struggles to tell them in a way that captivates people. Sometimes we all need permission to be real instead of perfect. Remember, you're not broken, you're untrained. And the skill of powerful storytelling can be developed starting with your next conversation. Until next time, stop just talking and start moving people with your words.